everybody, welcome back to this very special edition of Max Mosley's Flying Circus featuring Brothers Hunt. And they're laughing at me because I just fucked up the audio and wiped out about 10 minutes of footage. So let's jump back into the conversation. Yeah, we talked about how, the war of escalation between Vegas and Miami when it comes to promotion. I think it was
gonna be so good.
I think you mentioned to me on Twitter that it was what you wanted to see was another infield yacht club, but this time with actual water.
Yeah.
And
All the casinos are getting involved. All the casinos are partners with F1 on this. So they've got all the money they could ever want, and they can do anything. So if you're going to one-up Miami, you actually make a marina with real water.
well, I don't think
I
you really
wouldn't
even need to
include-
do
I
that
would-
because what's the fountains in front of the Bellagio? Just have them set up there.
Ooh, well, that's a good point.
I think do the fake marina, but have them on like a sea of poker chips. Like, let's really go for this, guys.
It's like I think I have a buddy of mine that lives in Miami, and who's not interested in motor racing at all, and like he wants to go to Vegas because we've gone to Vegas on previous occasions for music festivals. He's like, if that's how crazy it gets for a music festival, I want to see what they can do with an F1 budget. And I'm just like,
It's not only an F1 budget. It's an F1 budget where they want to make an impression. This isn't just an event. This is like, okay, we need to stamp ourselves in Vegas. We need to, like, this is the thing you want to say to a room full of, like, as we were talking about earlier, coked up boardroom guys. Make this an event to remember, and they're gonna go, oh, right, bring in the mountain.
Yeah, they won't be able to wait to do it again. They'll. I think this is interesting.
it's like, you know how they had the Tupac hologram at Coachella? Are we gonna get like a Frank Sinatra, Elvis hologram at the Las Vegas Grand Prix?
I went entirely different.
Senna returns.
They're going to start doing it with
Senna
F1, aren't they?
The Michael Jackson.
Ayrton Senna waves the
hologram.
checkered flag.
Ooh, they might,
Oh,
I think-
God, could you imagine?
I think we pitched it, but they should have like they should remake the crappy Caesar's Palace parking lot track, and then have Elvis impersonators race on it before the race. Like, instead of having like an F2 or F3 support race, have it be Elvis impersonators and go-karts. That would be amazing.
I love the also separate the Elvises by like periods. And it's blue suede shoes, Elvis into the lead.
That'd be
The
phenomenal.
problem is that I don't think anyone at Liberty Media or in the FIA are fun enough to let that happen.
Ooh, depends how much money you
Yeah.
put in front of them. I think
I get the thing.
Go on.
I was gonna say, I get the thing, the fun quote when they're like, "Oh, we'll put mermaids in." They're like, "Oh, well, that's too much fun for this event." They didn't even put them on rocks. They just put them on the side of a pool. I was talking to a friend from America who watched the race with me, and I was like, "Oh, they've got mermaids there," and she's like, "Wow! Like, there's going to be like a grotto. There's going to be like songs and stuff." He's like, "No, it's just two mermaids sitting by a pool." You sent me the Amazon thing, being like, "I can buy these for $40. What the hell is going on?"
Well, it's like again, from the DJ perspective, like I looked at that lineup and I was just like, okay, like Tiesto, I'll give you that. He's done multiple events for F1. He's a legitimate fan. I'm sure he's gonna add like Max Verstappen to his like ultimate '90s armband tattoo at some point. But like some of the others, like what was Post Malone doing there? They look like they trotted out Pauly D's grandpa from the Jersey Shore. Like it felt like that. Like there was just like, who are these
DJ
people?
Khaled.
It's
He would have
interesting.
made more sense.
Isn't Kygo was there? Well, I know Kygo's big in Europe, so that might have been like, "Hey, it's an event in America, but please watch anyway, Europeans, please." Like Kygo's massive, where he was massive over here, like especially in the late 2010s. So I wonder if that was part of it, maybe.
He was big in like the chill house, tropical house scene for a while before that
Yeah.
died, like before that kind of died out. But um, yeah, it's just like I don't remember. It's like there's so many people who are like, "How are you still relevant? How do you still qualify as celebrities?" Oh no, wait. Europeans are a bit behind on who's a famous in America right now, so they got to roll out the people that like they already know.
Yeah, we're still waiting for the results of the most recent election. We don't know yet.
It's like I just wonder why fucking Paris Hilton was there. Like
Yeah, that's a good point.
you were
An
barely
interesting
like
training
she's
you-
barely relevant in the first place, and like now the thing she's most famous for is shilling an NFT on Jimmy Fallon. Like there's like no point for that. But
Well, I
speaking
think a
of
lot of these
NFTs,
I think a lot of these people live in Miami. Like it seems
Oh.
like a lot of locals, like DJ Khaled, I'm pretty sure lives right there. I know Tiesto and Kygo are usually at those clubs right down there on the South Beach Strip area, performing like because they're like DJ performance club, whatever. So I think they just rallied up all the locals. Where does George Lucas live? He probably doesn't live in L.A. He's probably in Miami.
Yeah.
Michael Jordan.
George-
same
George-
way.
George Lucas has that sold out to Disney fuck you golden cocaine money, so he doesn't really have to worry about like where he wants to hang out. He can just go. But
Yeah.
He just spent the entire race going up to people going, "Now this is pod racing." And everyone's like, "Shut up, George."
that,
Oh
that
my
was
God,
good.
I would love
that
that.
was good. That like imagine
You just imagine.
oh, nope.
I can literally just imagine him going up to someone who was involved in the first one, going, "This is what I wanted. I wanted this. This Grand Prix was what I wanted for the pod race."
I just love the idea. He finds Nando Loris and goes, "You're my Anakin." Fuck off, George.
I love it.
And Lance Stroll's just Sebulba running around fucking everybody
Lance Stroll.
Strabolba.
Revolver! Yes!
Travolta.
I might have to spend some time on Photoshop later. That needs to be a thing. But like, did you guys hear about the Mercedes NFT project?
Yeah.
Oh, God. So many F1 people are getting involved in this. I think Roman Grosjean did the first one, and it just keeps popping up. And the Mercedes one is the worst one so far.
Well, it's like the question that I had was like, so there's a series of them that'll be done through a couple of races where like they're open bid, and the utility of them is that you'll get a chunk of the end plate, like the front end plate of the car. It's got like that special Miami kind of whatever paint job they threw on it. And I want to be like, if you buy that NFT from someone else later, do they have to ship you the chunk of the car too, or do they just get to hang on to that? Like, it's
Ooh.
the
Someone's not thought that through.
clearly. I think Mercedes may have not factored everything into play. It's like.
Yeah.
And it's like, especially when like the people who are like seemingly most behind this, FTX or their sponsor, it's just like, okay, Mercedes, are you doing this because you're really in for the cash grab, or is FTX roping you in because they've already given you money?
I think the thing as well is with from what I've seen so far of NFTs, I'm not one who like goes into it massively. But what I've seen so far, we're now seeing the edge of the peak. And it's now like, okay, we're going to do this NFT thing. And now all of a sudden, like, oh, shit, we need to pull the plug somehow. Fuck. And I'm not going to lie, fantastic. I'm all on board with that. But yeah, that's the thing. If it comes with ownership of the plate as well, there's the way NFTs work, they can obviously align it to the plate in a way, but you're going to get some sort of fraud there at some point. This is going to be a massive cock up.
Yeah. Like, I don't, other than like, kind of like the standard sort of sponsorship like you get with Aston. So it's got like that one little sticker, or them taking race sponsorships from crypto.com, that I could see as kind of being okay in a way, but like this stuff where it's like directly tied to teams and you're clearly trying to rope in, people, it feels a little slimy.
Yeah. I mean, is it Vashore in F2 who's got the NFT thing going on?
Yeah,
Is
no,
it Richard Vashore?
no, it's who's the other guy? It's not for sure. It's
Obviously, he sticks in the mind.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, I can understand it on a personal basis, but aligning a team where obviously in some aspects it is a team focused sport in some ways. I think the issue is that aligning a team to it is much worse than just doing it from one singular perspective because of just how much more ties it has all of a sudden, how much people it affects, and also how just aligning with one sponsor or one FT can actually give so much more of a negative stereotype to so many people. Like the overwhelming effects of that. With one person, okay, yeah, sure, I can understand that. But you're right, with a team, there's some ramifications there that we haven't really quite realized yet, especially if stuff starts going wrong.
I think it's Boschong.
Boschong, that's it. Yeah, Ralph Boschong. Yeah, he's got the big pixelated NFT on the green and white car, hasn't he? Yeah. That I can understand, and of course, especially when it's coming into Formula 2, where people are just trying to do whatever they can to afford Formula 1.
Yeah.
But yeah, Mercedes, 8-time constructors in a road championships, being like, okay, we're gonna do NFTs. It seems you said slimy. I'm gonna say slimy and cheap. Bizarrely, it seems like why do Mercedes need a quick buck?
Yeah, it's what I find interesting is it's like I didn't know that McLaren and Red Bull also had previous kind of crypto or NFT style projects, but like at the same time they didn't really promote them. I had to read an article about Mercedes' NFT project just to know that they were a thing. So it's like they were clearly pitching at the very least to the enthusiasts or just doing the very minimum amount to make their sponsors happy and then be like, okay, we're not dealing with this shit anymore. Y'all can handle it. And that kind of brings me to another question I wanted to ask you guys, specific to kind of the Americanization angle of this. Are you guys worried about how like Liberty Media are running this shit right now? Like, because it definitely it feels like we're getting to a point where they're gonna start fighting with the FIA about some things.
At this point in time, I'm not worried because I think that what they're doing is yes, there's a few more street circuits and it's Miamification, but basic fundamentals haven't changed yet. Whilst the sprint races are a necessary evil and I think pointless, the rest of the show or the actual sport itself is fine. But you've hit on something there that at some point, Liberty and FIA are going to disagree. Something, and it will go boff, and it's just gonna go shits everywhere. It's just gonna go. It's gonna hit the fan, and everyone's gonna get involved in it. And I will laugh a little bit when it happens.
Oh, of course, it's gonna be highly entertaining. I think at the moment I'm similar to you, Alex. At the moment, I think Liberty Media are doing quite a good job of raising the profile of the sport. Whether they've done as good a job as Drive to Survive, yet to be known, as yet to be seen. But so far, yeah, I can understand the steps they're taking. The issue is I mean, F1 is a money-driven sport, one of the most money-driven sports in the world, and obviously that's what they're going to be aiming for. It's when it overtakes logic and it's when it overtakes the legacy that F1 has. That's when it's going to start getting dodgy. When they're so focused about where the sport is going as opposed and not remembering where it's come from, that's where it's going to be an issue. Now, of course, you could probably argue that's happened already. Like, I mean, all of these races in 1 year, sprint races, changing the format. There's still some ways when they've always argued themselves. These are things they're trialing, technically, in a way. We know sprint races are going to stay now, unfortunately, but time they're done. But they still are engaging fans of old and fans of new at the same time well. It's if it spills over and trying too hard to engage new fans that the old fans start getting pissed off about it. And yeah, I think that's going to be more of a worry than the FIA initially. The FIA, obviously, we've seen some really unusual things happen in recent years, but that's not too unusual. I think FIA and Liberty Media will butt heads eventually, but because they're so separate, I feel like that's not the immediate issue with where Liberty Media are going. The only thing I can imagine them butting heads with, we saw kind of we had a bit of a hint of it at the season finale last year at Abu Dhabi, where obviously the spectacle possibly becomes more important than the actual legacy in that aspect. If that sort of thing keeps happening, it's gonna drop like a lead balloon. Something along those lines. That's what I'm afraid of happening at some point. I think for the meantime they're still kind of treading water, like they're still within their depth, but things could get ugly quite quickly.
See,
Yes,
because
and unfortunately for Liberty, they don't have a spineless FIA president anymore to deal with. They now have someone who appears to have principles and is getting on with doing what he wants to do with the sport, and that will lead to a quicker clashing of heads, and one which Liberty could lose if they're not careful.
I'd assume in a head-to-head currently, Liberty Media would fare off worse if the FIA directly confronted them. The FIA took a hit having Michael Massey. I mean, that entire thing was a shambles. So they're still kind of reeling from that at the moment. I think in a direct head-to-head at the moment, if something happened, FIA still should, because they are the governing body, they would have the upper hand in something that was actually relating to racecraft and such. I hope if Liberty Media have got the right mindset, they'll realize, okay, we're just going to stick to the marketing. We're not going to try and change too much. If we try and get off, it could turn ugly very quickly. I know exactly what you're predicting.
Yeah, because that's my biggest concern is that it's gonna be not Americanization from like the culture of F1 more or less, but more that constant growth American style business model that's going to start to become the issue. It's like
bigger.
yeah, we're not seeing what was it like? There's been massive growth in the American like viewership market just because of Drive to Survive, and I'm sure it's probably picked up other places too, just not to the same extent. But once those dividends start to decrease, and they have to start doing more and more stunty type things to try and get people in. That's what I think you're right. You're gonna piss off the older fans. Like the idea that they're even talking about removing Monaco and Spa from the calendar is absurd to me, because it's like Spa it's a fun track to drive like in video games. It's an amazing track to look at when it's not fucking raining. Sorry. I like last year I got up at like 6:00 in the morning, went out for breakfast, like got home, was ready to watch, and then watched for 4 fucking hours till this guy texts me and is like, so what's happening with the race? I'm like
I had like just woken up and
Yeah.
the race is just starting back up.
I
I'm like,
was
"Wow, this is great."
so fucking pissed. I was so mad. So like
you touched on a really good point there. Something like Spa is quintessential F1, and it has been since almost the inception of the sport. Yes, new tracks are fine as long as they don't displace the old tracks.
Right.
If all of a sudden you get Miami instead of Spa, you're going to get some really pissed off fans.
Yeah, you shouldn't. Don't forget that Spa has dropped off the calendar multiple times in the last 30 years for money reasons. So sponsorship and the Belgian government being, much like not a fan of.
Prime example of that, the fact we don't have Nürburgring or Hockenheim on the calendar, that's sacrilege. That's the first one that's gone. That's been particularly bad. More like that. I mean, I'm not gonna lie here. I do have it tattooed on my leg, so obviously I'm gonna be a bit biased. If Silverstone goes, I'm gonna write a strongly worded letter to somebody.
You're gonna spit out your tea when you first read the article. Then you're gonna write a letter, aren't you?
Heavens!
Yeah, the Spa one is it's. I think you've alluded to it, Chris, which was it's replacing Spas for Miami. That is the problem. If Spa and that sort of track falls off on the basis there's no money for the track to pay for it, then fair enough. That's why Hockenheim's gone, but that's going to come back when Porsche and Audi start getting involved. And it's as long as you're not directly replacing old decent tracks, whether it's European, South American, Australian, Japanese, for new tracks that are probably, to be honest, street city tracks that are potentially useless. And yeah, it's the natural course will take it. It will
I
change.
I did like the effort that even though it wasn't a fantastic race and it's not a particularly great track for current F1 cars, bringing back tracks like Zandvoort as well, whilst introducing new tracks, stuff like that, like almost preservation of previous tracks, like almost like I appreciate that as well. That's the thing that works hand in hand. I'm all about that. But yeah, as I've said, yeah, if it starts being like, oh, we're going to have the 16th Vietnam Grand Prix, and I'm afraid, not Imola, sorry, Monza's got to go this time, guys. Yeah, that's going to piss people off.
Yeah, the Tifosi will just show up and set fire to whatever permanent buildings are around that track in Vietnam. Like Hanoi, it's just gonna burn. Like
so many horses' heads and so many beds.
Speaking of another Italian family, what do you guys think about Andretti Autosport and their quest to join Formula One? Like, I have my theories about how it might end up happening. I think that probably the most likely what we'll see eventually is like a joint venture between Audi and Andretti.
Mm-hmm.
I know that like supposedly that Andretti's got like a deal in principle with Renault to run their engines, but which will get just thrown out the window if Engelstadt steps in. And then Porsche's kind of combo deal with Red Bull.
A bit odd.
I mean, I'm sorry. I'll let you finish your point. Sorry, buddy.
Oh no, I'm just thinking like, will another American team kind of dilute the pool?
No.
About to say there's quite a few British teams there.
Well, I mean, like, look. Even Mercedes is based in the UK, well, Alpine is too. They're based in Silverstone, aren't they?
Enstone, yeah.
Just up the road from Silverstone, about 10 miles away.
It's like Haas is not real. They're American, but they're not. They're based in Maranello now.
That's why it's not a problem to have Andretti, because Haas, yes, they're an American team, but they're not the balls to the wall American team, which is US flag as the livery, and just we're going to be American and we're going to show off about it. That's what I expect Andretti to do more of, which I think it would go down quite well, because Haas is basically just a Formula One team who happen to come from America.
So you're saying Haas is just kind of like the entry level, but what Andretti will end up being is the Team America fuck yeah version of Haas. Because if so, you can obviously see I'm wearing the Rich Energy era Haas t-shirt. Because what I love about F1 is just the absurdity of it all, and that was about as peak absurd as American involvement in Formula One has ever gotten. But if we get like an Andretti Autosport car with an American flag nose cone that's just got like the remember the Bitten and Hisses livery from only instead of just with an eagle on the front. I'm down
with the claw.
Yeah, I am down.
I am so on board with that. And we got to remember, Haas last year had the Russian flag on the side of it. Let's even taking the Cold War out of it. My bloody God. I mean, at the moment, we kind of need the Star Spangled Banner F1 team back. And with this is one I always love. I love the pronunciation of Mario Andretti. Having his F1 team with him was already having some prestige and having that side of things, that's fantastic. And if he comes in and goes, hell, we're going full America here, that'd be fantastic. I love the idea. I love the way you phrased it, full Team America.
Yeah.
I love that idea. I absolutely love that.
What you have on the rear wing.
Car stalls on the grid. The car stalls on the grid, and the guy's doing this. And the commentator's like, is he saying kiss me?
I think that's how they're going to get the Americans really tuned in, because nobody in America knows that Haas is an American team. Nobody. So they don't think they have anybody to root for, like in the World Cups or in the Olympics or anything like that. You tie a team to America, I think you'll see the guys in the stands with the flags tied around their necks and they're chugging the beers and screaming and stuff like that. I think that's one way to get Americans into it, would be let Andretti in.
I also feel like on a certain level, like having that just fuck you level of American patriotism will rope in the NASCAR fans.
Yeah.
Oh, hell yeah.
And purely for just the absolute clusterfuck of different socioeconomic backgrounds just invading an F1 circuit, I want to see like the rich NASCAR fan who gets into Formula One, like roll up to the track on a weekend in one of those like 50-foot RVs with like the apartment that pops out of the side of it, like, because yeah, the Europeans spend their money in a bit more refined way. We're not like that. You'll find that out in Virginia. There's some people who spend their money in the stupidest possible ways.
And well, you say that. I went to Hungary in 2017 for the F1 there. And I was like, oh, basically, it's almost as expensive just going to Silverstone. So I was like, screw up, I'm going to get some flights, I'm going to go over to Hungary. I watched it, and you watch the race, and it's great. You go out to the grandstand, huge, massive club scene of like rampant Italians with like, their clothes off. Massive swimming pools, which they'd put in because it was so hot at the time. And also, Johnny Walker, the whiskey company, is giving away free whiskey to anybody over 18. It was fantastic. And I imagine some Americans would love that. Turning up to the situation, proper like pool party vibe, club going on. Okay, gotta go to the club scene. Don't go and watch the race. Back to the club scene. I mean, it ended up. I've shown Alex this video. It ended up with me on the back of on the back of somebody who'd hijacked like a little like minivan or something, driving around the track. It was great. Yeah, the Americans in on that. It'll be fantastic. Yeah, honestly, it's I think one thing as well, with the American patriotism coming through, there needs to be an American driver. There has to be an American driver for that team. If it's Colton Herta, if it's Pato Ward's looking unlikely, Logan Sargent. It's great having the American.
He just signed with the Williams development team, didn't he?
Yeah, unfortunately so. And that's the thing. Like the American team is good. But I imagine for how I know people who watch American sports, an American driver for an American team, that will hit the nail on the head. That will be perfection. If it's like, oh, why am I supporting some French guy, some Brit, somebody in an American car? I felt having a specific person being able to hold up somebody's face. I mean, I know people who still, I know very little about baseball. But there are people who still go to baseball events and hold up Don Zimmer's face. And this was like a manager from the 80s and 90s. Some nobody, but like, I love this guy and he's mine. If they have that with somebody in an American car, that would be the gateway for so many people to get into it. It's like in Spain with Alonso. No one in Spain likes F1. Suddenly Alonso comes in, everyone loves it.
I can't disagree. But it's going to have to be one of those things where you're going to have, like, Andretti would have to have two American drivers. You'd have to have the clean-cut, like, respectable American driver, and then you'd have to have the kind of, rough around the edges, like, he's fast, but he's got that, like, basically he has to be an American with an Italian last name. So, like, he's got to be fast. He's got to be able to crash a few times, but he's also got to be able to win a few races.
Ooh. Which category does Colton Herta fall into then?
I have absolutely no idea.
Clean cut.
Because he's
the clean cut.
More surely. So, yeah, because
also because he's young.
Yeah, he really hasn't done. I don't think I've been following IndyCar more, but like I still haven't really heard anything like, every kind of response from him is very much, yes, my press coach told me exactly what to say here, so I'm going to say it, so it's not to offend anyone.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like,
yes, I would like to thank the team.
Insert sponsor here.
Yeah, it definitely seems like that. I like I don't know. I don't think there is gonna be an American who's gonna like I would almost want like this hypothetical American driver to kind of embody some of the spirit of old school Formula One.
Mm.
You
You
know,
need one Pablo Montoya. You just need you need the new Montoya basically. Obviously he's Colombian, but that style of race, the one where it's like, okay, he finishes 4 races. No, sorry, he finishes 1 race out of 4, but he won that 1 race. Like you need that style.
What you want is the aggression of Montoya, the the on-track stuff of Montoya, and then you want the off-track lifestyle of James Hunt.
Yes.
yep.
Yeah,
Go for it and just enjoy.
The problem is I don't think that person exists in American motorsport right now. And if they do, they're in some like NASCAR support series, and they're not going to be going anywhere near Formula One.
Oh, that's disappointing. So, okay, I'm just trying to think. It's not really going to be Alexander Rossi's territory, is it?
Oh,
I don't see him making a comeback at this point. Do you?
Oh, Alexander Rossi is unbuttered toast. Let's be completely honest. He's not a bad racer. You get some good results, but my God, that's like even his Indy 500 win. He was like, "Yeah, this was good." Last year I wasn't here, but this is good.
Yep.
It's like, for God's sake, man, show some emotion. Hello, Castro Neves winning last year at Indy 500. That's what you want to see. He's like, like something like just climbing fences. That's what you want to see.
Connor Daly, I think that's a shout with that mullet. That's a personality, just in the hairstyle.
Only
And
if
his dad
like
raced F1, so there's a nice arc going on there.
it's like if he's gonna rock the mullet in F1, then like his race suit has to be like denim colored. like that would be the only way. Yeah, the
His
whole
race
thing.
boots go over the jeans.
Yeah. Like
Instead of exhaust noises coming out of the exhaust, it would be Billy Ray Cyrus just coming out of the exhaust.
Yeah, every time he does a shoey, he gets plastered because it's this long.
He's got to pour half the bottle of champagne in just to make it worth it. It's like part of me thinks there's legit hope at some point for an American, but it's just like it's gonna take a while.
It's happened before, so it's not like you've had Mario and you've had Phil Hill, so it can be done.
Don't forget about Scott Speed.
I'm forgetting about Scott Speed for a very good reason.
You know, I'm just bringing that up because it's like as far as F1 drivers go, that's a strong name.
Oh yeah.
Oh, that's
Too
that's
bad
the American
he
name
wasn't
you need.
actually
No
that
word.
fast.
Not
I just love that it's equivalent to like Mike Overtake. It's exactly what you need in this sort of thing. I think the issue is with F1 needs to be such a thing in America that people grow up and go to motorsport want to be in it. Obviously, Colton Herta said F1 is the overall goal for him. No one else in IndyCar really is like, I would do whatever I can to get into F1. Most people are like, I'm an IndyCar, and I'm bloody happy about that. And even like Callum Eilert, who was still in F1 potential, he seems pretty happy in IndyCar right now. Grosjean's gone over to IndyCar and be like, this is great, I love this stuff. You kind of need F1 to be a goal for somebody. Like you need to be a starting goal, not just hey, I can potentially do this and make a bit more money. It's got to be the end game.
It's like I feel like a lot of like the kind of junior drivers that like come up through Indy Lights, what they look at is they don't see the Jacques Villeneuve route of starting Indy Lights, go to Indy, go to F1. It's, you know, starting Indy Lights, go to Indy, win the 500. You know, that's the goal you want to reach.
The problem when Villeneuve and Montoya were in kart and going over to F1, they were basically the same car. F1 cars and kart in the mid-90s were very similar in performance and just the way they looked as well. But nowadays, an Indy car is entirely different, and it's hampering the ability for drivers to do the technical stuff in F1. And
Well, I was shocked last year when they said that the Indy cars don't have power steering. I was literally blown away by that because that's you would assume naturally with such high-powered cars. I mean, the top speeds aren't too far off from each other. But to have one where it's so physical and then one where it's not, I mean, that's already a massive disadvantage in one way or another. Like, yeah, you got to imagine the hop from IndyCar to F1 has to be near enough seamless to not necessarily guarantee success, but to guarantee performance.
Like a upper midfield position at worst.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, obviously, it'll be the thing with F1 is, which is slightly different in IndyCar in some ways, is how massively the constructors play the part of it. But yeah, if you have somebody who's like, if you have like the Colton Herta in IndyCar, let's say we have Colton Herta right now, who is winning the odd race, championship contender, that sort of thing, and he starts getting the odd 10th place finish, Alex Albon style results. Why would he want to stay in F1? Like, why would you? Why do you want to be like, oh, I'm going to continue traveling all around Europe, far away from my home country, to get a 10th place once every 5 races, or I can fight for wins in IndyCar in America and be a true patriot in some way or another. Yes, I know the background, that sort of stuff, but still, you got to consider, like, I mean, face it. If you let's face it, I'm far off being an IndyCar and F1 driver. But if you gave me like, hey, you can move to America and have a few race wins and a few podiums, or you can be an F1 and trundle around the back of the grid, it's gonna be a tough proposition.
It's
Yeah.
why
That's someone who likes
on the same point, it's why you don't find very many American motorcycle races in MotoGP anymore. Is because they can make a very good living on the American circuit, and then jumping over to Europe and then, as you say, finishing 10th every now and then just doesn't appeal.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can definitely understand how that would get tiring after a while. Yeah.
That's the thing as well. And also, the F1 calendar is brutal at the moment. And yes, granted, some parts of Europe aren't too bad, but the races that go to one part of Asia and back to Europe and that sort of thing is knackering, especially as we're now on the 23 race calendar, which is ending early because of the World Cup. It's going to be absolutely like exhausting at some point. IndyCar actually seems sensibly spaced out in some ways. And of course, with IndyCar, like obviously with F1, you get Monaco. The Indy 500 is still something special. To have like an automatic entry to that if you qualify, obviously, as well as going around the country where you have a couple of weeks between races. Yeah, you get one race where it's double headers going between so many different countries, and it just sounds wholly unpleasant. And also, I feel like the media coverage in F1 is much more taxing than in IndyCar. I feel like with IndyCar, you get to say, everyone gets to say their piece, they don't get too bad. F1, it's hounded. You have an entire press day, and then you're doing interviews on Saturday, then you're doing interviews on Sunday, you're doing interviews on Friday as well. And that must just be too much. You've got to actually take personal well-being into it too.
On top of that, you not only have like just the media availabilities that the drivers have to sit through, but you also have like the tabloid press, which for IndyCar just does not seem to be a thing. Like the questioning whether or not Daniel Ricciardo will be around, or Nick DeVries gets his F1 test with Williams, and that's like what they're saying is like, okay, all right, that's a sign. Latifi's out the door either before the end of this year or by next year. Like, I don't, because like I'm even though I don't follow it that closely, I don't hear anything like that coming from IndyCar.
Yeah, that's the thing. Something I always find weird. Every time I look for like IndyCar stuff, you get the basic information, obviously, but then there's like no fluff, and it's somewhat refreshing. Because like, hey, if you search up any F1 driver, you're going to get 15 articles like, hey, this is their girlfriend, this is what they're wearing, this is what they're doing, this is where they're spotted outside their flat, this is their favorite video game. And it's like, Jesus. I mean, that really takes something out of it. Like Pato O'Ward, who's probably the biggest IndyCar driver in Britain right now because of his alliance with McLaren. Yeah, it's still entirely respectful, and like, yeah, it's nice as opposed to being like, oh my god, Lewis Hamilton wore a pink top. What does this mean? Is this aligning with somebody? What is this? I saw that some other company had a pink shirt recently. This is bad. This is really bad, guys. We all need to talk about it now. Like,
what I want to know is like Lewis can get like full on fashion coverage from the beginning of a Grand Prix weekend to the end of it, but nobody, and I mean no one, will call out Pierre Gasly for wearing that fucking horrible Hublot. Like, I'm sorry, but that thing is god awful. It's like,
size of his hand.
man, like,
yeah. And it's a thing as well. There's the thing that's come up quite a bit recently is British bias, which there is a fair bit of. I'm not going to lie. Even from my perspective, it's pretty abhorrent. The thing is with Lewis Hamilton as well. People love to read about him, and people love to love him. People love to hate him. If you don't ask about him, you're going to get both sides of that because you're like, hey, he's wearing this outfit. And people go, I love this. I'm going to share it on Twitter. Or people go, I hate this. I'm going to share it on Twitter. Normally, when it comes to British and the French, we're not too,
Well,
engaging in that sort of aspect.
there is a certain irony for a Brit to tell a Frenchman how to dress and deal with fashion, and no, we shouldn't. No,
It's one of the best arguments I've ever heard.
Especially
One of the best arguments on this. One of the best arguments on this I ever heard was a Brit and an American, and the American was being like, "English food is terrible," and the Brit was like, "We've got the 10 best restaurants in the world in London." The American's like, "What do they serve?" And he was like, "French food."
Going for an English,
It's exactly that style.
not so much a thing anymore. Going for an English, what would you like? Black pudding. What the hell is that?
My friend who stayed over.
Run away very
My friend-
quickly.
Yeah, my friend who stayed over from America recently went to have a coffee in like a greasy spoon, and was appalled at beans on toast. I'm like, that's like a national staple here, and she's like, what the hell are you guys doing?
In fairness, like I was at the Open Championship in what was it, Turnberry, a few years ago up in Scotland, and I have to say I'm a fan of fried haggis. It was quite good.
Nice.
Yeah.
But
So good British food is Scottish, not English.
Yeah, exactly. It's not even English. It's Scottish food.
it's like, you know what, like on a certain level, like I know that like there would be people who would hear that come out of my mouth, and you know the clubs would come out and the bagpipe music would start, but like you know, again, like you can fit your entire country into one of our states. Like,
Oh yeah,
give me a break.
I think Britain fits into Texas 2.5 times. It's ridiculous.
Oh dear.
I've done that drive from Austin to Houston. It's
Oh,
yeah, not
I wasn't
fun.
that far on a map. Looks alright on a map.
Alex, no, stop, stop, Alex, bad.
Where you guys really do have us beat, though, in general, is like rail travel. I know I'm going off on a tangent here, but you know,
That's something I was surprised by, that there's no like American train service. Obviously, Britain, we got quite a bit of it here. That was something I was talking to one of my friends in the States, and I was like, "Oh, why don't you take the train?" They're like, "What?" And I was talking about getting the train into London when they came to visit, and they're like, "Oh, I'm not taking the train. That's always full of drunks and like pissheads, that sort of thing." And the assumption was it was the subway. I was like, "No, this is buff the ground." And they had a fantastic experience. It wasn't like the Oriental Express. It wasn't anything that classy. Don't get me wrong, but they were surprised at like just how normal it is just to get a train here, and that had never crossed my mind. I assume of all places, America would be brilliant on trains, but maybe actually the distance, the amount of issues we have in such a small country, in America wouldn't be a great idea.
like the only real overland travel that you get here is Greyhound, and that has all the people that your friend was probably talking about in terms of weirdos and stuff like that for any kind of long distance. So it's like,
Yeah.
but yeah, I think that's probably a good place to end it, since we're branching off onto rail travel from the original topic. But
Let's talk about the Declaration of Independence.
Oh, let's go back to what we were talking about earlier with Nick Cage and about nicking the Declaration of Independence.
Nick Cage.
Go
okay,
for
no.
one.
I got one more. Where the fuck was Nick Cage?
Oh, no!
in Miami. Where was he? 'Cause
Yeah. That's a good point. He should have been giving out the first place trophy.
Oh, could you imagine? That'd be amazing.
that might still happen. That might still happen in Vegas. You know,
Ooh.
imagine like he trades his like T-Rex skull to Stefano Domenicali for the chance to present the trophy in Vegas.
Don't do it. Don't. No.
Oh my
I can
God,
see
it's like-
I can see
there was-
that
there's-
happening.
There was fear on Taylor's face there. For the first time I've seen the series, no, please no.
If you have a T-Rex skull, it's a thing. You can't get rid of it. You have to keep it forever. Why?
Just
But
go
it's Nick
Google.
Cage.
I would do it right now, but we'd be here for several hours. Like Google a list of the crazy shit that Nick Cage has bought, and like a T-Rex skull doesn't even hit the top 10.
That's the thing, because he's currently doing any film he can to make money because he's like 3 million times bankrupt or something like that.
Yeah, and he has like a massive tax bill he needs to pay off. But like,
Good.
I'm not selling the skull.
Yeah. he'll be in like a 1-bedroom or like a studio apartment here in the valley, but with the skull. He's still got the skull. He's like, this is great.
I did
This
the
is
thing
a
you
lie.
told us not to do, and I typed in what did Nick Cage buy, and apparently he bought a $207,000 octopus.
Is that the one that predicted the World Cup results? Oh,
Oh wow!
$207,000 octopus.
Oh my goodness.
Fantastic. How can we end on any better note than the $2,007 octopus?
I don't think there's a better note to end on than that. Thank you all for joining us. These guys have been the Brothers Hunt. I have been Raveheart. He has been Taylor Surreal. Make sure to check out all their stuff down in the comments. I will link to all their social media and stuff. But we'll see you guys in the next one. Adios.
Thanks for having us on.